Hey everyone, it's Chris Ronzio, founder of Trainual, and this is the Organized Chaos Show where we talk to other business owners who are systematizing and scaling their business to see how I can help. My background, as you might know, is in organization consulting, operations consulting, and so I am kind of dipping back to that skill set and diving back in with other business owners. So Eric, thank you for being a part of this today.
I appreciate that, Chris. I'm excited to fix this annoying problem that I have.
Okay, well, we'll see what we can do. So, Eric, your business is called Ninja Tropic. Why don't you tell us quickly what that's all about?
We're an e-learning animation studio. We specialize in mass e-learning video production. So a lot of our clients want to produce a lot of animation, a lot of like highly produced video, and we make a lot more cost affordable.
Okay, so are you doing this kind of one-to-one with each company where they'd hire you with a whole suite of ideas and then you pump out animations for them?
They usually come with us with content, like a lot of
Okay.
it's scripted. We do have instructional designers based in the US, but the ideal client has a bunch of scripts. They have a vision for content. They just need it done fast at a reasonable price. Usually, a lot of clients avoid agencies just because it's just cost prohibitive, but because we're highly
Mm-hmm.
focused, we're awesome at it, and we're kind of like an e-learning video factory.
Got it. How'd you get into this?
It actually kind of started out of need. I worked for a nonprofit and I had a very ambitious boss slash mentor. And it was funny though, because one day she invited me in her office and she was pointing out one of our competitors and saying, "Hey, we have to do what they're doing." And she proposed a budget and I was kind of intimidated at the time. And she asked me if I can produce all of these videos for the budget she proposed. And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I really didn't know what I was getting into at the time because I had a little involvement in animation, but I just knew it was very difficult. But so later that day, I started looking for a new job. No, I'm just kidding. I just knew
Then
what
no,
I
thank you. Moving on.
it just wasn't an option. So we had a bunch of freelancers in the States. It wasn't affordable. And we had a few good ones. We just couldn't get them working as a team. So I looked
Hmm.
for companies in India. I had the same problem, and the Philippines, the same issue. I happened to come across this company based out of El Salvador that was actually a virtual admin company. They had a virtual admin model where you could pay a flat rate for a full-time employee.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what was the book? The 4 Hour Work Week is the one that
Yeah.
turned me on to them.
Yeah. Oh, so they were in the book, the Tim Ferriss book.
I think so. Like it
Okay.
was it was a branch off or a version of that company.
Okay.
Um, so I reached out to them and I asked them to find me a video editor, and I've kind of built my internal team within that company of animators. So we're able to produce volume in an organized way, and then eventually I did the only logical thing, and I partnered with the lead animator, and we started our own business
Got
and
it.
started offering the
So,
service to other people.
so were you ever an animator yourself? Were you ever producing the videos?
Uh, Kind of. So in the beginning, not really. I was more of my background's more in like general e-learning development and management.
Okay.
I started dabbling with it. I try to learn it enough to teach somebody else to do it, which is kind of funny about it's kind of what I actually want to talk about later today, just because like initially when I was talking to Carlos and when I reached out to this virtual admin company, I was like chatting with them. I was saying, "Hey, look, if I pay you guys to learn this software, like, could you guys do this for me?" And actually, they ended up having like masters in animation. They
Wow.
ended up being way more savvy than I could ever be, and it just worked out really well. So to answer that question, I knew it a little, but I never actually did production consistently.
Okay, interesting. So it's funny because obviously Trainual, my company, is sort of in this e-learning space, and my first company was a video production company, and I was an editor in After Effects and tinkering around with everything. And so I totally see how that could have been a different path for me.
Oh yeah, no, it's a very slow and tedious process. I mean, for me, it's very intimidating. I'm not a big fan of editing.
So why would someone hire you guys as opposed to the do-it-yourself model, where those animation websites where you're picking stock photo, little smiley faces, and making explainer videos? What's the main difference?
Alignment with branding and more options in terms of style, art, um, We just have a wider range of tools. And the funny thing too is what ends up happening is a lot of our clients, they start with the Beyond project because they get very motivated at the beginning, and then they come to us and have us finish their project in Beyond. So we use those tools. We use like the template based software. We're just more of like the manpower behind it. Like if you need yeah, if you need a few videos and that style is okay with you, definitely do it within house. But when you need 100 videos within the next few weeks, that's where having a bunch of people helps.
Got it. So you're kind of in between the do-it-yourself tools and the agencies that are just crazy, out of control, expensive.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that just because of the way we're built, we actually employ full-time animators in-house. As you're aware, like a lot of agencies, they usually like subcontract that out to other freelancers, and it creates a lot of lag and time. So our clients usually want to go big. They want to produce a
Yeah.
lot of video, and it's a really weird niche that not a lot of other agencies are tapping into in the e-learning space. Usually, they'll produce 1 or 2 videos for a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we're producing a lot of videos for a pretty good amount of money.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think that helps to add some context to what you're doing. And you're here in town. I'm in Scottsdale, you're in Phoenix, so we're probably not that far apart. So let's dig into it. What can I help? What do you want to talk about today?
So and it kind of ties into the point or the question you had earlier about like whether like I've ever done animation. So I've done a tiny little bit, enough to like sell the concept, but I've always been highly leveraged in my business, right?
Mhm.
I've always been able to sell the service. I've always been the key point of sales. I know a little bit about marketing. I have a marketing staff right now, but my wife is pregnant and I'm
Congrats.
starting to I appreciate that. It's going to be our first, so she's due in
Oh,
April.
that's awesome.
And it's kind of a nice it's a nice pressure to put like to take myself out of the business. Like
Yeah.
sales was like the last piece that I was holding on to, and it's because one, of course, I think I could probably do the best at it. I know I can close. I have a very high close rate, um, but I think it's time to kind of finally give up this portion and let somebody who's better at it, who could be better at it than me. So I'm kind of an introvert. I don't like talking to people, and I just know we have somebody on staff who can crush it if I teach her the right way. I just don't know how to teach her or um, like coach her onto this process.
Okay. So it's not
Especially,
your thing, and you're
yeah,
trying to figure out how do you elevate someone, how you coach someone when it's not your specialty, right?
pretty much, yes. Especially because I think I can walk her through like inbound sales. For example, when somebody reaches out to us, they go to on our site or we track them through SEO and they have a need, it's very easy for us to close. Like at that point, it's just a competition in terms of value, and we're structured to win that race. Now, when it comes to reaching out to new prospects and like that, like driving demand, I've never been effective at that. And I think it's if we're going to dedicate a full time person to that, like I need to be able to train them. I need to coach them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of nervous about this process.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, let's talk through it. So, I love that you've got a baby on the way. It was funny. I have 2 kids, and my business model changed both times my wife was pregnant because it was kind
Oh,
of
nice.
in anticipation of exactly what you're saying. So,
Hmm.
when I had my first son, I was doing the consulting work, but I was kind of a free for all, consult anything for anyone sort of business. And with when he was coming, I wanted to be around a lot more. So it forced me into creating packages and blocking out days on my calendar to sell time in a much more packaged way. And
Hmm.
then when my second son was born, it was actually the week that Trainual launched, so there had been a lot
Oh,
going
nice.
leading up to that. So I totally appreciate where you're coming from. So it's funny with our business. It's developing a SaaS product, and I'm not a programmer.
Hmm.
I haven't coded since the HTML on my MySpace page or whatever, like long time ago. And so I don't understand that business at all. Yet we had to hire developers, ensure their success, coach them along, hire UX UI designers when I'm a very poor designer. I'm okay, but I'm
Hmm.
not the best designer. Same with salespeople. And so you don't have to know how to do everything in the business. You just have to know if the results are good or bad. What's your expectation? And so before we dig into actual sales, I would say let's talk through your marketing funnel of what's teeing up the sales, because it sounds like you've got a high close rate, you've got a sales process. Do you have enough leads to support a salesperson, or what's your marketing funnel like?
For inbound leads, I would say no. Like honestly, it's if for the appointments coming in right now, it shouldn't take me. I probably have like 3 or 4 appointments a week that I could easily close myself.
Okay.
Now they come from conferences, SEO, and returning clients.
Okay.
So with those, that's actually kind of floating my business right now. But I'm hoping to, and I, and it's kind of important in terms of the conversation of scalability. Like, should I even be pursuing a salesperson? Like, do we really need that growth where we're reaching out to people and pitching the service? Because yeah, we have a model that allows us to hire people, but I mean, like we currently have a building. It's not necessarily going to grow that quickly, right?
Hmm.
It could create a new set of problems.
How big do you want to grow? I guess, like, what's your vision for the business?
Well, a year ago or a year and a half ago, we had a mantra of 200 ninjas in the office in 5 years. And
Okay.
it's funny though, because like literally this week, I'm discovering how stupid of a goal that was. The good thing is right now we're about 55 people. And uh, can you hear me? Your screen froze.
Oh, I can hear
Okay.
you. You're
Okay, perfect.
frozen too, but we'll see if it catches up. There you go.
Okay, okay. So right now we're about 50 people,
Hmm.
and we just closed USA Swimming. Autodesk is becoming a client, so we're getting all these like enterprise clients, and I think in about 2 months we'll be at 75 people. Now that was my initial vision for growth, but I started reading the book Profit First, and it's kind of like it's talking about all the frustrating cash flow problems that entrepreneurs have during that growth phase, and I'm realizing, you know what, maybe growth isn't the answer. It's kind of like this problem or this solution and problem to all of my
Yeah.
issues in business.
Yeah. Well, what sounds cool about your model is even if you've got those 3 or 4 calls coming in a week and you've got repeat business, it's like you don't need a big top of funnel a lead list in order to generate a base of business that continues to grow. If
Mhm,
you're doing repeat business for customers, as long as you get those 3 every week, the business keeps growing and growing and growing, and you add more people that can supply the video production power, right?
mhm.
So if you don't need to scale your funnel quickly to the point that you have a huge outbound sales force and you're trying to create 50 deals a week, if that's not what you're aspiring to,
Mm-mm.
and the path for your growth is let's just keep organically building this manageable, scalable business, then your focus is more on the production end of the business, which it sounds like you've got dialed in, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, and then I fully leverage there. I'm rarely involved. There's a few areas where we have to pull ourselves out of the project, and it's really just like the handoff between a larger client to the account manager. We're
Yeah.
still hand holding at that phase, but we're right now we're really focusing on pulling ourselves out of that. But at some point too, like you uh, you kind of want to experience those larger clients before you let your team handle them.
Yeah.
The good thing about our growth these past few years is we've grown in the amount of customers, but also the size. So we really wanted to have a more hands-on approach to them. Now our goal is okay. Like now that we set the standard for types of customers that we have, we can teach somebody else to do that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that for me that was true to a point as well. When we first started out, I was just doing all the demos and it was something like 40 a week. It was crazy, but that helped me dial in the process of what questions am I asking? What are people asking me? What are the common objections that people have? How long should a demo be? How do I show them just enough that they're
mhm,
satiated but not overwhelmed? So I kind of felt that out myself. For me, I didn't hire a salesperson first. I had like an assistant turned project manager turned operations manager, and she started taking those demos because I just
mhm,
didn't have time to do them anymore. And the process was just, here's how to do the initial call, here's the questions to ask them, here's the 3 outcomes that we're looking for at the end of this call. It's either a fit, and they sign up for a trial. It's
Hmm.
a fit, but they need some other decision makers involved, or it's not a fit. It's like one of those. And so we had this loose process, but then she was able to take that and run with it. And so then as the company was growing, we did hire a sales rep, and I felt the same way, where when we would get a big logo come in, it was
Hmm.
like, oh, I need to do that one, like
Yeah.
that's like, we can't mess this up. And so I would get onto those calls, but because I wasn't doing all the other ones, I was like losing my touch a little bit.
Hmm.
I was breaking the processes, because it was like they're doing 50 of these a week, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna do Adidas, you know, and then and then I come in and they're like, you forgot to say this, you forgot to say this, and I'm like, okay, I messed it up. So now we have two sales reps, and they do all of them, the first calls, and they bring me into a second or a third call if it's needed to close the deal. So for me, it was like, let me get myself out of the initial processes and just kind of move further up the chain, so that
Hmm.
if they need me for something, they'll bring me in for the coaching, the training that they don't have. But otherwise, I want them to close the deals. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think I can build my way up to that. But did you ever have sales reps for your other businesses, or is this your first time hiring a sales professional?
This is my first time with salespeople, and my other businesses. In my consulting business, I consulted with a lot of sales teams, but didn't have them
Hmm.
myself.
Oh, okay. And maybe I'm just kind of worried or scared about this process, just because I had a lot of concerns about like what they would be doing regularly in terms of outbound sales. Right now, it sounds like your sales reps mostly handle the inbound leads that you guys have, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so inbound and outbound are totally different. We've got
Hmm.
we're leading with marketing and brand and leads and trials coming in, and then our sales reps are just kind of nurturing those to a close. Whereas an outbound sales approach of cold outreach and get conversations started, that's totally different. But it sounded like all your leads were coming from conferences and other
SEO.
activities.
Yep.
Are you looking to
Outbound.
build an outbound sales team?
Yes, and that's what has me concerned, because I think the inbound portion is pretty easy, right? We have a few presentation slide decks. Um, like we have a lot of information documented. Unfortunately, it's
Mhm.
on Google, so I have to reach out to you guys about that. But we have a lot of slides and templates that I can coach her through. But it's more so like the outbound process. That's honestly, it's always intimidated me. So I'm just not sure how I can coach somebody else to that.
So is your business more of a transactional, small ticket kind of things, or is it more relationship, long-term customers, big ticket items?
Big ticket items, like an average project for us is like $60,000, and the biggest sale we've had is about 150, 160,000.
Okay. And so I think that the most difficult part about that business is that bigger ticket items have longer sales cycles, right?
Yep.
It takes a longer, there's more decision makers, there's more people to talk to. And so what probably feels the hardest is bringing someone in to take on that responsibility. You're not going to see results very quickly, right?
Hmm.
Like, do you know how long your sales cycle is?
About 4 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
All right. So it'd be 4 months before they see their first dollars.
commission. Hmm.
Yeah. And then do you have enough with those 3 or 4 a week? If they took over a commission structure for all of those, would that be an income for someone, or would they really need to do 10 or 15 deals to produce an income?
It depends, because that's the other part of my business right now. With an exception to a few instructional designers, like 95% of my team is in my office in El Salvador. And we
Okay.
have this wonderful account manager that actually might transition over to the sales position. Her English it's actually better than mine.
Okay.
And she is very enthusiastic about sales, and she's a people person. So
Mhm.
she's like my prime candidate for outbound sales. Uh, so here in the States, it would probably require like a higher percentage of commission, probably 10 deals a month. But there, three or four or five within a quarter would be very sufficient, especially closing them. Like that's
And being remote doesn't affect ability to build relationships and work with customers. You don't need someone that's in person at all the events or anything.
She comes to the events or the conferences
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Usually I'll fly down about 3, 4 ninjas and we'll do a lot of sketches. Actually, I think I saw you guys bought a booth at ATD, so we're
Oh
going to
yeah.
be there as well. Yeah. In
Oh,
Denver,
cool.
right? You guys are going to be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. We'll be there.
We got 2 booths and we're the people in the orange outfits. You'll see us.
Okay.
But
Cool.
so you actually see, you'll meet Andrea as well. So she'll be there, and if she ever needs to visit a client in person, that's actually not too difficult. It's about 2 hours away, so it's an option. And plus, I never see any of my clients in person either. Like it's rare for me to actually visit them.
Okay. So what's your hesitation? Why not just turn this over?
Well, because I've never actually done like outbound sales or cold calling. Like I'm entirely like I use a lot of I use SEO, I use our current marketing strategy, and I'm trying to like hire somebody or like bring her up and coach her on a position like cold calling or like reaching out to people on LinkedIn. And that's something I've never done before.
Yeah.
So I know people do it. I know agencies do this in this space. I know it could potentially work for some clients. And for her to be effective or if she's successful, the return could be there. I just
Hmm.
don't know how to teach somebody something that I've never done before.
Well, one thing that's difficult is if you've never done it and she's never done it, then you're both trying to figure it out for the first time. Whereas
Yeah.
it's easier if you've never done it, but you're hiring someone that's done it and they're bringing some
Hmm.
experience to the table. So it could be that, the first person that needs to do it is somebody that's done it before, and that she
Hmm.
is a great second person to do it once there's a roadmap. Or it could be that she's just the absolute right person because she knows the product inside and out, but you need to bring on a sales coach or consultant to mentor her because you don't
Hmm.
have that capability. So similarly, we have mentors, consultants, people that have worked with our product team, with our sales team, because I don't have all of those skills and they need someone that they can bounce ideas off of. But I'm hiring people that have a base foundation of experience where,
Hmm.
as we're growing, we need the expertise brought to the table to help develop the company. We can't just make it all up from scratch.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to decide if do you know enough to give her some direction to say, let's try this. It's not going to disrupt the day to day. You can go back to your old position, but here's at least an outline. An outbound
Hmm.
sales strategy is you need to talk to this many people in order to get this many phone calls, in order
Hmm.
to get this many customers to say yes, or whatever that funnel is. And if you can go back through your last year or couple years of doing this, you sort of know the math for you. And then
Hmm.
you could cut it in half for a new person and say they're not going to convert nearly as well as I do as the founder. But then build out a model and say, here's how many people you need to talk to or reach out to, and here's a few sources that you're going to reach out to in order to get those people. And then let's measure this. Let's try it for 3 months or 6 months and see how it works. And so if you could go that path, but I would just say do it. Like if you think she's the right person, try it.
Hmm.
Like there's really nothing to lose.
And there are sales management consultants, right? There's like an external sales manager that I can hire for this type of thing.
Yeah, or you could go on, services like clarity.fm or Upwork, or find people that are experienced in this field and just say,
Hmm.
"Hey, can I hire you for 4 hours to coach us on mapping out or looking at this sales process we came up with for an outbound sales and just give us some feedback."
Hmm.
One of the first things I did before I hired my first sales rep is I built out the 12-month commission structure of here's how many
Mm.
accounts I expect you'll sign. Here's how many annual deals versus monthly deals. Here's the average deal size based on my experience. Here's what your base will be. Here's what your commission will be. And we mapped out like if all goes well, this is the structure. And we both agreed to that up front. And when she came on, she said, "Okay, I've got a plan at least. We don't know if it's the right plan, but it's something to measure off of and work from."
Hmm.
And so then 3 months in, we looked at it and said, "Oh, I only thought you were going to do 10 your first month and you did 14. That's great.
Yeah.
But your average deal size was way off. So let's adjust the rest of the year and realign expectations. So I would definitely do that from the start.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, it's funny though because it's something that seems relatively simple. I can just take the chance, and a part of me thinks I'm just scared of making this adjustment. So, um,
Is there something like, would there be a void if she moves over to this new position, and does she stop doing something else?
no, we're already transitioning. I'm already trying to transition somebody in production for account management that could potentially do a better job than she is. So, um,
Cool. Well, you know what's amazing about those versatile people that are with you early on that are just all stars is
mhm,
they can kind of blaze the path for a bunch of new positions. Like the
mhm,
same person that took over sales from me at first started our customer success, started our HR, started our went it became operations manager, now is chief
mhm.
of staff. And like when you've got someone like that, let them be the machete in the front of the forest, you know?
The one that makes all the mistakes. Yeah, we have two of those people that actually, yeah, that exact situation. They started off in production. They were an account manager. Now they're lead production. We pulled them over to HR,
Yeah.
and they just have very thick skin. I mean, things don't always go right, but you just know that they'll push through.
Yeah, and that's amazing. You get someone who just that's kind of like your beta tester to
Hmm.
figure out new positions, right? And there's nothing to document up front when you haven't done this yet. You create as much structure as you have. And so you being the salesperson, you've got some basic stuff. You already said you've got some slides and scripts and whatever, right? And so
Hmm.
you just start with that and say, here's what you need to know. Let's work one-on-one on this. And here's the 12-month plan. And let's see how it goes for a couple months.
Now, as a leader within a company, do you think I should be very transparent as to like, hey, look, this might not go well, but it's okay if it doesn't, or should I just go in there and say, hey, look, like we're going to crush this? Okay, because I'm kind of split on how I approach the situation. Because part of me thinks, look, we can try it, give it 4 months, and then worst comes to worst, or like you kind of want to have that sense of perseverance, or no, this is going to work. You got it. Like,
Well, you want to be, I mean, like, no, I don't think any motivational sports coach in history walked into the locker room and was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Like, good luck. You know, so you've got to motivate a little bit, but
okay.
it sounds like you've got a great rapport with this person.
Hmm.
You can be frank and say, look, I'm relying on you to help me figure this out. Here's how we're going to measure this. Let's talk once a week and do one-on-ones to see how it's going. Because even though you don't know, you might not be a subject matter expertise, you probably
Hmm.
underestimate the value you can provide for that person just based on what you intuitively do as the salesperson right now. And so same thing, like I've never run a sales organization, but when we do our weekly sales meetings, they say, oh, this is some problem we ran into, or this is some call I didn't know what to say. And I said, all right, well, let me jump on it. I'll do this one with you. And then after we pencil out what were the things you took away that you're going to do next time. And it would have been hard for me to train that because I don't really know I'm doing it, but it's
Hmm.
easier for them to perceive those things and tell me what they learned. Does that make sense?
Mostly, yeah, yeah. And actually, and I think it ties into the question I'm about to ask. Now, if she's, if this person's like taking this role of discovery, they're figuring out the role, and I'm there as somewhat of a guide. Like, how do we document? Like, I guess we just have to give her a platform for actually documenting the processes or everything she's learning, just in case she leaves one day, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
I wish I knew a good tool for that.
yeah, I know, right? I gotta I really have to check that out just because I know this is what you guys do, but I wasn't sure if like how do you make sure there's like a repetitive documenting of this process? All right. Or let's just say we track all of the mistakes she's making and she's not, because honestly, the process at the beginning at point A is going to be very different from when she actually knows what she's doing.
Right.
Um,
You don't document from the beginning because
okay.
there's no reason to document. If she's just figuring it out, it's a total experimentation. But once you are ready to train someone else to do this, that's why you
Yeah.
would document, and so it's either that this person has done the thing so repeatably, but they want to move on to something else, and that gives you the reason to write it down, or it's that this person is doing things very consistently, and you say, I just, as an insurance policy, want to get you to write this down because it'll help us train other people and promote you in the future. Or it's just that you want to hire other people to have 3 people doing this, and there's some reason to write it down. So, initially out of the gates, you're not writing it down. You're just meeting about it every week
Hmm.
and saying, here's what worked. And then once there's any part of it that's consistent, you say, write that piece down. Like, how does someone book the first call with you? Does that happen the same every time, 20 times in a row? Let's write that part down so other people know how that works. How does your first call go? Have you figured out, like, this is how you do it? 10 minutes every the first 10 minutes every time. Let's write that piece down because it's consistent. So I think that happens over time.
That is very helpful because I've made some mistakes in the past in terms of document. Like we usually in our business will have a problem, and then we'll have like a brainstorming meeting, and then we'll pitch a solution. And before we test it, we document it and like make it the Bible, and then we test it, and it kind of like falls apart over time. So I like that concept of um, routine meetings, figuring out what works, and then eventually there should be a few triggers that tell you, okay, this
Totally.
is good enough to give to somebody else. Because
I'm gonna grab something off my shelf to show you. Hold on.
all right.
So I actually trademarked this thing, do it, document it, delegate it, because I was saying it so often, and I came up with it in this presentation, and it was like this little formula that in business, you figure out how to do something, and until you've figured out how to do it consistently, you don't document it. And then what, and then until you've documented it, you don't delegate it to someone else. It's like, it's this easy process that, you just, you don't write things down until they are the Bible. You don't,
Yeah.
you've got to know that it works, and then you write it down.
Yeah. No, I think we probably got overexcited in the past. Now we're not. Now actually we do have a like at least for account management production, we finally have created enough process maps that we're on the right one. It's been a growing process. So I like this approach because initially the first thing I wanted to do was like, okay, here's the process, right? But
Yeah.
maybe as a general guide, it's just not going to be the official process. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't
So,
have to, you don't have to give instructions for the something that you haven't done yourself, but that's where, you're bringing in someone else. That do it,
mhm,
document it, delegate it is for something you do. That's to get something off your plate. And I think you're not giving yourself enough credit because you do sales. You've done sales.
mhm,
You know how to do it. Even if you don't feel like you're the expert, you do have a process. So I think you write down what you do know, and you say,
mhm.
this is how I've done it. Here's the rough frame, and here's the plan that I think is a loose plan we can work from. But then they do it, and they experiment, and they figure things out, and then you start to get more specific about the process.
Love it. Now, no, this has been helpful. You mentioned a company called Clarity. What do they do?
Yeah, clarity.fm. It's a place you can book experts to talk by the minute or so. And so you filter by their expertise. It was started by Dan Martell, who's an advisor of ours. So I've
Mhm.
known about it for a while, but there's a lot of sites like that. And I mean, it can even be,
Upwork,
LinkedIn.
or yeah.
If you find someone that's and I can recommend people here locally that I know if you want offline. But if you find someone like that, that's a good coach, a good outside perspective, it really helps to infuse that into a business. It's not everything has to come from within your business, but
Mhm.
I think you seem to have enough structure in place to at least give this a try.
Definitely. Okay. No, this is quite helpful because I know, at least for my plan of action, it's one, just try it, have routine meetings as to what works, and then don't document it until we have an effective model.
Yeah, this is gonna get cut up as me saying don't document stuff, and this is gonna be used against me. But that's the
Oh,
process. Follow the
all right.
process.
No, it is comical how many charts and graphs we have of things that were supposed to be our tool but didn't really work, right? But okay, no, this is helpful. Then I think I'll definitely hit you up for those outside sales reps. It feels easier than, I mean, like I hate to be a pessimist about it, but sometimes I think just making the choice of like what's the worst that could happen, right? Like I'm just out
Yeah.
X amount of dollars and okay.
Yeah. And, outline success and say, this is what I want to get off my plate. Because in the questions you submitted, you said the rest of the business is pretty dialed in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, now that we've hit our largest, like I don't want any larger customers. Like I don't think they can. Like I feel very happy with the size of customers we have.
okay.
We figured out 90% of the problems. Right now, every now and then something will come up, but it's because we're out of process or there's an issue there. So, in
Yeah.
terms of production, things are pretty smooth. Um, Maybe there's some like accounting things, but I don't really. I mean, that's more administrative. So we'll.
Yeah. You know what's fun when you get to this place? I was there with my video company, and I remember we had like over 300 camera operators doing events around the country. And because I didn't work in an office with them and know them very closely, I was able to travel into events sometimes, and they thought I was just another, temp person hired off
Mhm.
Craigslist or something, and got to just work alongside people and realize like their awesome ideas or their complaints or whatever, and then go back and make changes to the business. And so it seems like, once you get the sales stuff off your plate, you can be that person that's just like bouncing back in and re-engineering things.
Being the undercover boss. I think
Yeah.
that's.
Love that show.
I'll actually that's the goal too. I know we're uh, there's a chance I might pivot to a new business model, but of course I got to pull myself out of the sales position because it's taking a lot of time.
Yeah. Okay. So what else do you want to chat about? Or was that the main
I
focus?
No, that was pretty much it. I did have a question about. I mean, we kind of talked about it in terms of like how much do you hire internally versus going to outside for experts for. I have a bias towards like bringing people up within the company just because um, I don't know if it's a trust issue, but like I just think they already know the company, they know the process, and for an account manager role,
Yeah.
it feels like it would be easier to have somebody that can speak to it quickly.
Yeah, I have the same bias. And as much as possible, I want to promote our internal team. I think as a culture, we've invested heavily in people. Like up until recently, we had a $2,500 per person per year, like education, personal development budget. And now it's unlimited and it's more ROI based. Like anything that you feel is going to add to your role,
Nice.
to the contribution of the company, you put in a proposal and explain how this is going to help. And if we agree, we'll go for it. And I want people to be up leveling themselves and gaining skills. So I think the difference with external people is, I'm not saying you always need to hire an external person that with skill set. Sometimes you do,
Mhm.
but sometimes you can hire a mentor, or you can hire a mastermind
Mhm.
group, you can hire a coach, and you can supplement your team. And so I think that, you continue to build your own people up as much as you can. But then
Mhm.
in some cases, you're just growing too fast, or you're getting into some market and there's some demand that the business needs something more urgently, then you can close that skills gap. And that's when you want to hire the people that have the experience.
Wonderful. Okay. Now I love that concept, and actually, it's a really cool policy. We have something called Power Hour, where from 8 to 9 a.m., everyone's required to do some type of online personal development tied to their trade.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's cool. Normally, the office is like very loud and annoying sometimes, but from 8 to 9, it's absolutely silent. It feels like a library. Then you have a bunch of people taking online courses on animation.
Oh,
So
nice. That's good. And do they share what they learn as well?
yeah, actually, what, and this is me being cheap. We, because I mean, it's hard to make 50 people pay attention to online learning, right? Because as you know, it can be kind of boring sometimes, especially if we're not developing it. Uh,
Nice
so,
plug.
yeah, right. But they, what we started doing is you have every day you have to watch a certain amount of content, either read it, watch it, or we have a bunch of memberships to different platforms. They journal for about the last 10 minutes, and they're responsible for developing 3 creative concepts a quarter. So two of them could be, one of them has to be for Ninja Tropic, like it has to have like a ninja in it doing something.
Mm.
But the other ones can be anything, and it's just fun to see what they. I feel like a parent putting like the drawings their kids do on the refrigerator sometimes, because it's,
That's funny.
yeah,
That's cool
it's
though.
cool
That's
stuff.
good. It's good to have space like that. And I think that's the big takeaway is, our policy, what we do, what you do, we're both providing space for that personal growth. And so
Mhm.
I think that's an important thing. All right. Well, unless you have anything else, I guess we can
I'm
wrap up
good.
here. Cool. So for anyone watching, I think the big takeaways from this were, if you're building out a sales team, whether it's inbound sales or outbound sales or outside of sales, if you're trying to delegate a responsibility that maybe you don't have all the expertise on, or you're not sure how to mentor and coach, it's still possible to either bring in experts or supplement with experts to grow those positions in your team. And hopefully everyone at their company has a ninja at the front of the pack with the machete, figuring out how, how to do every role. So hopefully there's some good takeaways here, but Eric, thanks for chatting. And I will look forward to connecting with you in Denver.
Sounds good, Chris. Have a good one. Cheers.
All right. All right. See ya.